Hello, I'm Yong Bae. I'm the maintainer of HiFi Immersion YouTube channel. We're here at Roico today, and next to me is Mr. John Soden from Paradigm.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, likewise. Well, thank you for coming here.
It's my honor.
You're the vice president of
The Pml group, which includes all three of our brands.
Right.
Paradigm, Martin Logan, and Anthem.
Wow, it's quite interesting because Paradigm is basically these kind of speakers, whereas Martin Logan is electrostatic, right?
Our science is based in the history of electrostatic technology, correct?
Yeah.
But of course, as the years have gone on and the company has matured and developed, Martin Logan offers a wide variety, not just electrostatic speakers, to address the many needs of the audio market.
Paradigm is actually, well, it was founded in 1982, right?
Correct.
Yep. And I understand you joined in 2005.
That is right.
Right. So in 2005, there was acquisition.
Shoreview Industries was the equity firm out of the U.S.
Right.
It came at a transition time. Scott and Jerry Vandermeer, the original founders, had worked together for many years, and Scott had his side, and Jerry had his side of the company that they ran, and they worked very well together. And at some point, Jerry, whom left before I joined the company, so I didn't get to know Jerry, though I worked with his brother Bill Vandermeer. We can talk about him separate in the interview as well, but Bill had a huge part in bringing me on board and mentoring me into the role that I developed into today. Bill came after the fact as well to set up distribution in the U.S. But talking about private equity, the ownership of Jerry is where the equity group stepped in. Jerry wanted to change directions in life. He'd had his fill with the audio side of things and wanted to explore into other avenues.
Okay.
And of course, at the time, Scott had the opportunity to either buy out Jerry's shares or look for future investment. And of course, Scott thought it would be wise to bring investment into the company to allow Paradigm to continue to expand and to grow, and future possible acquisitions. Of course, at the time, the marriage of Paradigm and Martin Logan had not happened. So part of the Shoreview acquisition allowed us to partner with Martin Logan in the form of an acquisition as well. So that can be one of the benefits of having a private equity firm join your company in ownership.
Okay. How does the Anthem come in?
So Anthem, you've got to go a lot further back. Another Canadian brand called Sonic Frontiers. Maybe you've heard of it. Paradigm, as it expanded from speakers into the home theater, multi-channel, we were looking for an electronics brand to complement how we were growing with our home theater selection. And it was at that time that Sonic Frontiers was at a point in its career path where they were open to purchase. And that's when, in the late 90s, Paradigm acquired Sonic Frontiers, and Sonic Frontiers was more known for tube amplifiers and CD transports, that sort of thing, whereas Paradigm was more interested in multi-channel home theater. And so to simply carry on with the name Sonic Frontiers could be confusing for a lot of customers. So within the Sonic Frontiers brand was another category called Anthem. And for us, that seemed like a very good naming convention for where we were going. So born was the name Anthem, and the first processors came shortly after that, followed by some amplifiers, and here we are many years later with a selection of amplifiers, integrateds, processors, receivers that fill in the full range.
You're basically dealing in pretty much everything in Hi-Fi and also AV.
Absolutely. There's so many facets to audio. And when you take a company like Martin Logan, for example, they were very much entrenched in the two-channel world. And that's when Gail Sanders and Ron Sutherland when they formed the company. It was very two-channel driven, but Gail was a smart guy. He saw what was happening out there and saw an opportunity to expand, and you had a lot of people thought that he was a little bit crazy to start considering conventional woofer technologies, expanding into subwoofer technologies and center channel technologies. Well, it turns out he was right. And had Logan stuck to just electrostatics, who knows where we'd be here today or not. So part of being in the Pml family is there is an entire R&D section that is just dedicated with the Martin Logan family, and there's another R&D section that's dedicated to the Paradigm family, and of course we have our Paradigm Advanced Research Center in Ottawa that's heavily, of course, based in the NRC, that does a lot of our Anthem, amp design, and much, much more.
With Anthem as well for NRC.
Well, when you think of the NRC, you think of the Athena project, and you think of the effects of sound in rooms. That is how Anthem room correction was born. And Peter Shook, who devised Anthem room correction, of course, he's on our team.
It was quite interesting to see the Paradigm has its own anechoic chamber.
Correct. And this anechoic chamber we have today, it's massive. It's over 1 million liters. So it is one of the largest audio anechoic chambers in North America and maybe beyond. Of course, there are larger anechoic chambers that test things like locomotives, but you wouldn't test audio. But it has been an invaluable tool for us. And of course, as our science is at least deeply based within the studies of the NRC, much of the NRC, of course, required blind listening and also the use of anechoic chambers.
For Paradigm, NRC's research, how did it help Paradigm's products?
Well, the NRC was a great study of sound measurements and how we interpret these sound measurements. How does the human ear decipher between what sounds good and what sounds bad? And how do you decipher that between a good sounding speaker and a bad sounding speaker? And really over a period of many years, the NRC in the Athena project conducted a study with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of speakers and thousands of listeners. And the goal was to determine what constituted a good sounding speaker, and was there a measurable difference, which, as it turns out, there is, which eventually became our curve that we now use the Anthem room correction towards as our target. So listeners, when put in double-blind listening, meaning they'd be in a room, they knew they were listening to something. They didn't know if they were listening to a bookshelf, a floor stander, a CI speaker. They just knew they were listening to something. If it was one brand, two brands, four different brands, that's the true meaning of a double-blind listening test, when they don't know, and the presenter that was in the same room can't give any visual cues because they themselves don't know what they're listening to. So many listeners went through multiple tests of listening, and in the end, they were able to consistently place good sounding speakers in one category, average sounding speakers in another category, and bad sounding speakers in another. And then they took those separate speaker groups, measured them, and they found very consistent measurements in the good category, whereas there was very good accuracy in the mid-range. There was very smooth off-axis response, and of course low distortion was shown to be more preferred. As distortion rose, the speakers would be less preferred. As off-axis performance fell, those speakers would be less preferred.
That means Paradigm have wider sweet spot.
Very wide sweet spot. And in fact, part of our measurement tool using the anechoic chamber, we not only measure our speakers on a 360-degree axis rotational, but also top to bottom. So we'll measure our speakers in full circle length and width in order to get a full spectrum of measurements of the speaker, not just on axis. So you'll see many speakers have a very strong measurement on axis, but as that speaker falls off axis, it can change dramatically. And again, in the findings of the NRC, as the off-axis performance began to fall, most people don't just sit in one spot. They'll be moving around a room, and the overall performance within the room becomes important to a listener.